Hello everyone, Ian Wishart here to bid you welcome to another episode of the Take a Pew podcast. Subscribe. And also to say that you are welcome to Mr. Simon Clark.
That's not very nice, Ian.
Oh, I'm only joking, mate. Subscribe. Seriously, I'm not sure that the podcast would have existed if you hadn't agreed to help.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, after all, I had been turned down by literally everyone else I knew. Subscribe.
Oh, yeah. Quick question, mate.
What's that?
Why do you keep saying subscribe?
Oh, you noticed then? It's supposed to be subliminal messaging for our listeners to encourage them to subscribe and to keep up with all the Take a Pew news.
Oh, I see. Bit obvious though, mate.
Oh, was it? Oh, all right then. Subscribe. Anyway, where does the show take us today, Simon?
Well, we're going to a fish pond.
Oh, yes. I think you mean fish ponds.
What? There's more than one pond?
No, it's a place called Fish Ponds in Bristol.
Oh, right.
And we're going to meet the delightful Cathy Madavan. Cathy is a speaker and a writer. She's on the board of the Kyria Network and is a familiar face to many from her work with organisations such as Care for the Family and Spring Harvest.
And speaking of writing, she's just in fact released her latest book, Why Less Means More.
Well, we'd better keep that bit short then, mate. Talking of less being more, shall we get on with the show?
Yeah, let's get going.
OK, this is the Take a Pew podcast with Cathy Madavan.
Cathy Madavan.
And here we are indeed in the fine city of Bristol in the west of England. Famously associated with master engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, film star Cary Grant, and of course the founders of Methodism, the Wesley brothers John and Charles. But more importantly, it's now the home of our guest, Cathy Madavan. Cathy, welcome to the show and please, take a pew.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't mind if I do.
Hello, Cathy. It's great to meet you. Perhaps you could just introduce yourself to our lovely listeners.
Oh, thank you. I just love having guests in our home, and we are now living in Bristol, as you've said. So we've been here for about 7 months, and I'm here with my husband, Mark, who's a church leader of Fish Ponds Baptist Church. And we have 2 lovely daughters, and they now both live in London, so I'm missing them. I'm doing the empty nesting thing. It's quite hard when your children leave home.
Thanks, Cathy. Now, we're looking forward to enjoying the somewhat unconventional Take a Pew journey with you, looking at your travels through life and faith so far, finding out some of your favourite things, and of course enjoying your fabulous Take a Pew dinner party.
Yes, as well as benefiting from your insight in Is It True?, your spiritual pearl of wisdom, and my random question.
But let's begin at the beginning. Where did life start for you, Cathy? I understand that it was somewhere that smelt of spaghetti carbonara.
I have absolutely no idea what you are referring to. Genuinely, what in the world are you talking about?
No, it's just a spurious Take a Pew factoid.
Well, I was born in Bournemouth, which is very, very famous for its spaghetti carbonara.
Well, there are some mighty fine Italian restaurants in Bournemouth.
There are.
As a Bournemouth boy myself.
Are you?
Yes.
So yes, I was born and brought up in Bournemouth, and then moved to Plymouth to do my degree.
So you went to, what school did you go to in Bournemouth then?
Oh, this is going to get very niche very quickly.
No, it's very relevant.
So I went to Parley First School, Ferndown Middle School and Ferndown Upper School.
Ferndown Upper, wonderful. Well, in which case we have a question for you, Cathy.
Okay.
And our question is this.
What were you like at school? Were you a little bit geeky? Or were you a little bit freaky? Or were you a little bit cheeky? What were you like at school?
Yes, what were you like at Purley, Ferndown or Ferndown?
I was probably a little bit geeky, probably a little bit cheeky, probably all of those things. I was very tiny. So I'm very short now, as you know, but imagine being younger, I was even shorter, and I was also the size of a small twiglet. So I think, and I had very short hair. Most people thought I was a boy, so often people would say, let the young man go by, and I was terrible at all sports, being very tiny. They used to do horrible, traumatic, quite barbaric things like giving me a javelin or a shot put, or put me in front of a hurdle that was the same height as me, or in a netball team where clearly like no one wanted me at all. So I used to find all of the sport things very traumatic, but I loved the studying. I thought teachers were amazing. And my favourite thing was the music department. So in Ferndown Upper particularly, I was in every choir, every musical, all the school bands. And I think probably that music department was my home in many ways, especially during more difficult years when my mum and dad were splitting up and stuff. That music teacher and that music department, really did become like a second home to me, where I really found a tribe of people that I really belonged to. I think teaching is one of the most wonderful professions, and a great teacher goes far beyond just imparting information, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Hiscock, who was my music teacher, absolutely brilliant guy, actually ended up writing a piece of music that he played at our wedding. He brought so much joy and so much fun, and saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. So the first time I got a solo, the first time I had a lead in a school musical, I don't think anything I would have done afterwards as far as performing, leading worship in my church, things, I think were all because he saw something in me. I needed a lot of encouragement to find that in front of other people.
Did you have a good group of friends at school? Do you remember?
I would say I was definitely not the beautiful, popular kind of person. I'm a person who likes a few close friends. I think I still am like that. I think from a social point of view, I found those years quite tricky, actually. I think I've come into my own more confidence-wise, friendships-wise, as the years have gone by. I don't think I felt very confident back in those times.
Well, it sounds like there were a few rays of sunshine, which brings us on to our second regular feature of the show, which is...
What's your fondest childhood memory? What's your fondest of all your childhood memories? What's your fondest? Oh.
Yes. Yes, Cathy, what's your fondest childhood memory?
This one is such an easy question for
Good.
me. My fondest memory is just hands down going to my grandparents' house. So my grandparents were from Wales, and they were very, very simple people. They were from mining background. So, they lived in an ex-council bungalow in Bournemouth. But, threadbare carpets, storage heaters. These are not wealthy people by any stretch of the imagination. They'd come from, mining families in Wales where they'd have a tin bath that they'd pull in once a week, to have a family bath. Very simple people. But my goodness, there was card games, there was music, there was laughter, there was just a lovely atmosphere of welcome. I'd walk in, and the first thing I'd be pushed towards the piano stool, where I'd sit next to my grandpa, and we'd play these little jazzy tunes. There was nothing my grandpa couldn't play, like a swing jazz number on the piano, and he played the accordion and the banjo, and we'd just sit there and play our stuff on the piano. And then my grandma would come out of the kitchen every week, same stuff on the tray. Tuna fish sandwiches,
Ooh,
and
nice.
I know, and then a bowl of tinned peaches with evaporated milk on. These were happy
Fantastic.
days. So yeah, I love those. Memories are really special.
Yes. Oh, evaporated milk is fantastic.
I know, we don't see much of it.
We don't. And
Condensed milk. Do you remember that on your
Yeah,
cornflakes?
absolutely.
That was yeah. Well, I used to pour it on. I used to have condensed milk sandwiches.
Oh,
You just pour condensed milk over a piece of bread
just a
and
heart
eat
attack
it.
on a plate, really.
It's a little bit weird. It
Give
explains.
lard in the fridge as well. They were such healthy times, weren't they?
Weren't they?
Well, I
Yeah.
survived. I just witnessed my magnificent physique now.
Racing snake physique.
Even after that. But evaporated milk was good, because last week I thought I'd have a go at making that carnation chicken that people talk about.
Carnation or
Yeah.
coronation.
Carnation.
Well-
Oh, carnation evaporated milk, isn't it?
That's the mistake I made. I made carnation. It was
you made
horrible.
carnation chicken.
I don't understand what all the fuss
That
is
was a
about.
great
to be
pun.
honest.
Well done.
Thank you very much. My work here is finished.
Yeah, I'm on for 3 hours.
So yes, marvellous. Anyway, so you mentioned after those years going up Plymouth, did you say to?
Yes, I did my degree in Plymouth. Yeah.
Okay, what did you study there?
I studied, it was sort of marketing, communication stuff, and that's actually where I became a Christian as well in Plymouth.
Okay.
So I'd not been brought up in a family. So Plymouth was, and that's when I met Mark, and when we got married as well. So Plymouth for me was
quite pivotal then.
It was a completely pivotal few years, and Plymouth will always feel, I think, like an incredibly special place.
Was there any particular aroma of spaghetti carbonara in Plymouth, or not?
No,
Still yet to find it.
I am really hoping that by the end of this recording, I have some clue as to where the spaghetti thing is coming.
I don't think Ian even knows himself, to be honest.
There's no hidden meaning, don't worry. So excellent. So you talked about becoming a Christian. Tell us how that happened.
Oh, well, so Plymouth, the first year of Plymouth actually was quite hard because, things had been more challenging at home when my parents split up, and they'd become, I think I'd got into some tough stuff in my teenage years. So by the time I got to Plymouth, I was feeling a little bit lost, I think it's fair to say. And so that first year, I was, not a good place in lots and lots of ways. I always say, if you don't have firm foundations in your life, at some point you eventually sink. And I kind of sank, I think, that first year. And then someone, a guy from university who's in the Christian Union, began to share his faith with me. And, if I'm perfectly frank with you, I was not that interested in Jesus, but I was quite interested in him. So I just let him ramble on. And then he invited me to go to church, which I thought was definitely a date. So I said yes. And it was a tiny little Brethren chapel, nothing fancy, not seeker friendly, no guitars, organ, How Great Thou Art on repeat. But they were so lovely, those people, and they really welcomed me. And what I needed was a family and belonging, and I saw something of God's love through those people. I just think we should never underestimate how much people need to belong. We don't need friendly churches, we need friends. And that's what I needed. And so I remember very clearly one day being sat on a golf course in Plymouth and just saying what was a prayer, I didn't realise at the time, but saying to God, if you're real, if this stuff is real, if really you would give your life for me and love me that much, which is something I just couldn't get my head around because no one had ever told me about it before. Didn't realise Christmas and Easter were real things. Just thought it was hot cross buns and stockings. No idea. I really need to know if this is real, God, because this would be like massive. So I'm sat on this bench looking at this golf course, and this old man walks by, asks if he can sit next to me, and then just says, "Oh, young lady, I don't live in this country. I'm something called a missionary." But while I was walking past you, I just felt maybe God prompting me to say how much he loved you.
Wow.
And it was like, I don't know people's theology around angels or whatever, but whatever, that he was sent from God to speak to me at that moment. So I went back to the university, found the chaplain, and I was like, God's real. He's like, yeah, I know. So I'm like, how do I become a Christian? He's like, do you want me to pray a prayer? I'm like, absolutely not. I am praying a prayer. And from, at that point, no one's been able to shut me up ever since, really. And it was life changing. I'm not saying that everything in my life or my mental health or, I'm not saying that everything was rebuilt overnight, but that foundation of unconditional love, that foundation that really needed some rebuilding in my life, that's what God began to put back into place from that point on. And, I can't really imagine living life without that foundation of unconditional love now. So I feel very privileged that God was so kind to step in at that point.
Brilliant. And where did life take you after university?
So I met Mark very soon after that. So Mark was not that person in the Christian Union, but I started going to Mutley Baptist Church in Plymouth, which some people will know.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic church. Ian and Ruth Coffey. Ian was the pastor at the time. Ian baptised me, and very soon after I saw there was a theatre company performing in the church with a very handsome guy in the theatre company, and I was like, he will be mine. So I had to work out how to chat up a Christian, had no idea how to do it. So just went up to Mark and went up to him and said, any chance we could go out for a cream tea sometime? It was Devon, it was church, thought it was a safe bet. So
maybe go back and watch Songs of Praise afterwards.
Exactly. I know, living on very best life. So anyway, 3 months later we were engaged, and 10 months later we were married. So clearly, if anyone wants any top tips for a flirtatious kind of chat up line, cream teas.
That's it.
That's the way to go. So Mark was in that theatre company. He was fantastically gifted, and Ian married us. Ian Coffey married us that year, and then after university, we then moved to London for Mark to do his theological training to go into ministry.
Okay. And how did you spend your time then?
So I spent my time there. Now this is hilarious. So I've been a Christian for, I don't know, 2 years at this point or something like that. So I would not describe myself as much of a theological guru at this point, but God has radically transformed my life. I'm stuck in every way, possible. So Mark goes to Bible college and I start applying for jobs in lots of PR companies, marketing, all those things. Ended up getting a job in the Church of England in a charity called the Church Army, which is like a society of evangelists that work within the Church of England. They do social action, but also lots of evangelism. So I'm 20, what am I? 21, 22, 21. And I get a job basically preaching in a different church every week. So my job is to turn up to a different church every week in the diocese of Guildford, Southwark and London, and to preach. I have no idea what I'm doing. So one week I'd be in a massive charismatic, fantastic church. Another week I'd be in a tiny rural church with 8 elderly people. I mean, every week, completely different. And I'm very young. I'm very enthusiastic. God's changed my life. I'm turning up like Billy Graham every week, giving them 10 barrels of enthusiasm. Sure, I ought to just apologise to everybody who ever heard me during that era.
Can you remember your first sermon or preaching that you did?
Definitely. I remember turning up in Guildford Diocese, and I remember the vicar looking me up and down and saying, well, he said to me, well, you're very young. And I said, well, I'm... Yes.
That's encouraging.
I know.
Yeah.
He said, you're not at all what I expected. And I was like, well, I'm so sorry about that. So he said, are you happy to help with the Eucharist? And I was like, sure, no problem. So we're halfway through the service and the choir is singing. And I lean over to the vicar and I say to him, so, what's a Eucharist? Because I'm a Baptist. I have absolutely no idea. Well, so he said, like Lord's Supper, communion. I'm like, oh, communion. So I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, fine. So I'm thinking about all the tiny little thimbles of like random tasting juice. So I stand up and he gives me this massive goblet of wine. And it was one of those churches where people come forward, kneel, put their hands behind their back and just open their mouths like goldfish. I'm like, are you actually kidding me? Anyway, I think it's fair to say that week was a baptism by fire. And looking back, I have no idea how we got through it. But no one died. Everything's fine, and I'm quite sure I wouldn't be doing a lot of the things that I do today if in my early 20s. And that is important, isn't it, when we think about people of that age, that we give people to opportunities to both do well and to fail. Because how do you learn? You learn by doing, and I certainly was on a steep learning curve.
So these days, as we mentioned at the top there, that you're known for your speaking still and preaching and doing a lot of writing. How did that path find its way through your life?
Well, I think I've always been a chatter. So I think that's kind of, I think innate in me. I actually think some people are gifted to be able to put words together. And I think I always used to feel quite embarrassed about that. People used to say, oh, it's mouth from the south or, all of that. And I think I used to feel quite awkward. I'm too loud or I talk too much. And that is a danger, isn't it? Because every strength has its accompanying weakness. But I do think that's part of how God made me. And then obviously, once I became a Christian, I would be asked to give my testimony a lot. So I would often, Ian and Ruth in Mutley, and then onwards I would be involved in that. And then as Mark went into ministry, I would often be leading services or singing, leading worship. So I'm often on a stage at that point in my early 20s, preaching every week. So those things really were coming together quite naturally. And when I had children, that took a bit of a backseat. I was still leading worship, but gradually just asked to do a thing here and a thing there. And people often come up to me now when I'm stood on a stage in front of thousands of people and say, well, how do I get to be doing what you're doing now? And I'm like, well, by speaking to a room of 10 old people, or a women's meeting with 30 elderly women, or by preaching every week like I did in the Church of England just about a charity, by volunteering in different places. So you don't immediately get asked to perhaps speak at a conference or a festival. But as the years went on, people were recommending me for different things. Mark was also speaking a lot of different things, and they'd often be saying, we don't have enough women speaking, which is still an issue, still a really, really big issue. But Mark was kind enough to say, well, actually, my wife's really, really good, and that would also help. And we're great at building relationships. People got to know me. And yeah, kind of one thing led to another, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. And we'll come on to the writing in a little bit, but just while we're talking about speaking rather than writing, obviously recently completed another year at Spring Harvest. How do you find that? Because that's quite a big Christian event for anyone who listening doesn't know. And
yeah, I mean, is it, I don't know, 30, 40, 35 years? I don't know how many years Spring Harvest has been going now, quite a long time. So I'm on the theme group or the planning group. We're volunteers effectively who meet once a month to organise the event. There's a head office team who do the hard work, frankly. They're the ones who have to do all of the really, the really tough work. But we're a group of people in ministry who meet once a month to kind of plan the event, plan the theme of the event. Mark and I are actually writing the theme for 2024's event, so that's quite a lot of work. Yeah, and I'm always really privileged when I'm hosting or when I'm speaking there. I love it because the great thing about Spring Harvest that makes it, I think, not necessarily unique, but it's unusual, is that it really is from every denomination: Methodist, Anglican, Baptist, Pentecostal, anything you can think of at Spring Harvest. And people come knowing that everyone who's around them is from different backgrounds, different circumstances, different ages. And yet we all come each year to look at this theme together, to worship together, to enjoy all the after hours stuff together, just to hang out in Butlins together with all the facilities that are there. And it really is the highlight of the year for me. I completely love it. And it's just a joy to be involved.
yeah, certainly a very joyful environment. We've obviously been lots of times as well. And you're also in the middle of touring with Care for the Family and Mum's Night Out, aren't you, I think?
Yeah, I mean, Care for the Family is one of those just brilliant charities, isn't it? Parenting, marriage, bereavement, offering so much support to so many families. And I just really get the easy job of going out to play various events over the years, different tours with different people. So yeah, the one I'm doing this year is Mum's Night Out. So it really is a raucous, fun night. It is a night out for women, mums who you've got so much on their plate, and often no one does anything just for them. Their whole lives are thinking about everybody else. So we're just putting on a night to go, you matter too. Your mental health matters. Your priorities matter. Who you are matters. But we have a lot of laughs. I mean, it really is a fun night. Hopefully an uplifting and encouraging night. So yeah, really enjoying that.
And you do some coaching and mentoring and outside the church environment as well, do you, in terms of leadership?
Yeah, so I do some either one-to-one coaching, or sometimes I do training on communication skills and presenting skills, which I really love. Coaching can sometimes be about, again, people who maybe are learning to preach or to communicate, and they would like some feedback and they'd like some help as to either how to construct their talks, or often actually just how to develop their own voice and their own, because we often will copy our favourite speakers, or we'll see, Rob Parsons from Care for the Family, or if you're a woman, because there's not loads of women speakers around, so we'll watch Danielle Strickland or we'll watch Joyce Meyer on the telly, and you can actually see people almost emulating them. And it's about learning your own voice, your own style, your strengths and your weaknesses. So I really enjoy that. Sometimes it's more from a leadership perspective. Again, often women who maybe are in an environment where they're surrounded by a lot of guys, and they're lacking in confidence, or they're worried about how they're coming across, or all of those things.
And is that alongside the work you do with the Kyria Network as well? Is that?
Yeah, so Kyria Network, the Kyria Network is one of my favourite things in my life. So
you've got so much going on.
I know.
And you love all of them. What's going on?
But
sorry, we'll tease out the things you don't enjoy in a minute.
Yeah. So no, Kyria Network is this tribe, really, of women of influence. That's where the word comes from. It's Paul goes to meet this woman. She's called the Kyria woman. She's a woman of influence. And it is a tribe of women who are leading or making a difference. Could be in church, could be in business, could be in the arts, could be in their homes, could be in their communities. But women who know that they're making a difference and they want to meet other women. So it's not just kind of like a like fluffy, come along and be told you're a princess. It's very much, we want to make a difference. We want to be empowered. We want great teaching that helps us to lead and to love and to do our best, really. And I've made some of my best friends through that network. Some of my best friends are involved in that network. Loads of stuff online, loads of little podcasts and, snippets, Top Tips Tuesday, all kinds of different bits and pieces, really. Just encouraging women that, they can make a difference. Their voice makes a difference. Who they are makes a difference. But to acknowledge that sometimes, without getting feisty and weird about it, but sometimes there are obstacles or, systemic things that make it more difficult for them to maybe flourish and thrive. So acknowledge those things, but not to get whingy about it, but to say, yeah, God's made you to make a difference and, we believe in you.
Brilliant. And then all the writing that you do, as we mentioned at the top, you've just released your latest book, Why Less Means More.
So yeah, it's Why Less Means More, and the subtitle is Making Space for What Matters Most. And yeah, I've always written, really. I loved English at school. I loved writing stories. I've over the years written articles. I write for Women Alive magazine, and I wrote my first book, I think, back in 2015, Digging for Diamonds. I still get people write to me about it every week. I think it's amazing. But then this latest one has just come out. Why Less Means More. It's not so obviously Christian, so it's in shops like Waterstones and places, and it's the kind of book that you could use in your workplace or with your friends who maybe are not of faith. There's if you are a Christian, you'll see Kingdom of God stuff all the way through it, and it's definitely those values. But it is really thinking about what do we need less of and what do we need more of. And the world tells us we need more money, more success, more muscles, more foreign holidays, and that's where our significance and that's where our sense of fulfillment comes. But actually, we're just all getting frazzled and fried and overstretched and over in all the research on mental health and stress. This accumulative more mindset is quite damaging, actually. So I think it's asking, well, there are some things maybe we need some less of, and what do we really need some more of? So that's kind of the premise of the book, if you like.
Really enjoying it, Cathy. I have to say, really resonated.
What a creep.
I know.
You can stay.
Can I stay?
You can stay.
Can I have an extra biscuit?
You can, yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
I just love there's a bit at the end of each of your chapters where there's a pause and reflect sort of section, which sort of summarises it. I just love that bit, pulls it all together. Really enjoying it.
Thanks for that. I worked really hard, actually, on that. It's almost like a mindset challenge, isn't it? At the end of each chapter, just going, well, actually, what if it was less about this and it was more about this? So I'm thrilled to bits to hear that you found that helpful.
Anyway, that's probably enough plugging, isn't it, of the book?
Do you know what? I'm not being actually a serious point. Certainly in the UK, Christian publishing is under huge pressure. So, don't apologise ever for plugging a Christian book in the UK, especially if it's a British author. If we want Christian authors from the UK to still be asked to write books, then we need to do everything we can to encourage them. So thank you. Plug away.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Cathy.
So, what a hectic life, Cathy. It's extraordinary. So you're here now in Bristol. You've been here, as you said, a few months. And you're settling in and helping Mark build another church.
Well, I don't know how much help I am. I'm probably more of a hindrance some days. But no, we've very much come here together to the church. Mark's the minister, but we've very much come with a together mindset in this season where our kids aren't with us. Going, well, let's really try and establish ourselves here. And fantastic people at Fish Ponds Baptist who've really welcomed us. They do some great stuff in the community here. And very impressive, really, how much they love the people in the community, whether it's people in recovery, Ukrainian folks who've come over, refugees, big Hong Kong community in our church. Lovely welcome to the Hong Kongers who are coming over. Massive, isn't it, to move to the other side of the world because you feel that you've had to, not necessarily because you've wanted to. We think it's a big thing moving from Southampton to Bristol, so can you imagine? Yeah, it still feels like early days though. It takes a long time to make new friends and to settle in, and our stuff's still in boxes. We're still in a temporary place of accommodation. So it takes time.
Yeah. But amidst all of that, do you have time to pursue any hobbies?
If we have a day off, which we always do, and we are in the spirit of everything that I write and teach about, we are quite careful about creating margin in our life. We would love to go for a walk. Going for a lovely walk and a meal out somewhere would be like a great day off for us. If we managed to see some friends or to see our girls or to see some live music, that would be... And Bristol's packed with live music venues, jazz venues, classical music venues. There's a theatre to go and see musicals. So that would be our favourite things to do. And if we could have a bit of travelling thrown in as well, that would be my ultimate relaxation. And reading a good book, always, obviously.
Yeah. Of course.
And you also mentioned paddleboarding in your book.
I did. The thing is, I used to live, until 6 months ago, we lived on the south coast next to the sea and next to lovely rivers. So I bought this paddleboard. So I, paddleboarding up the river near where we lived. I'm not sure in Bristol it's going to be quite so straightforward.
Canal, yeah.
Yes. So I don't know whether I'm going to get to use my paddleboard as much anymore. I'd have to be very committed, I think.
Local swimming baths would be okay.
Yeah, they'd love that. They'd love that.
In the fast lane. Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing how your journey continues, Cathy, and indeed we'll take a little look to the future after dinner. But before dinner, we're going to find out how all that you've done so far has shaped the things you like, as we play the little game that we call My Favourite Things.
My favourite things.
Now, this is a very easy game, Cathy. We'll give you a series of categories, and all you have to do is tell us your favourite thing in each.
Ooh.
Yes.
How exciting.
It is it's very simple, very simple. Our first category is always your favourite book of the Bible.
Oh, that's a hard one. Probably Esther. I mean, Esther's amazing, isn't she? I mean, God's not really mentioned in the book, but the rescue of the people of God obviously is in there. And you've got this woman who, I think we slightly turn this into a rom-com. It's no rom-com. She was basically trafficked. She was chosen for her beauty, and she was removed from her family to go and at the pleasure of a man who was probably not the same age as she was. So let's be honest about that. And yet she has to show this incredible courage in coming up to the king and standing up for the Jewish people, and she could have just lost her life instantly. That was what was at risk. And so she's honoured. It's big Jewish festival in her name, and I think she's a remarkably brave woman. She has beauty and she has bravery, and I think it's a wonderful story.
It is a great story. I really do like Esther, and Mordecai is one of my favourite names in the Bible as well.
It's a great
Mordecai,
name.
yes, of course.
Yeah, and he gives her a proper prod, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. You don't come across too many people called Mordecai these days,
not
do you?
really, no.
I thought, again, going back to the coronation, I thought you don't come across many people called Zadok, do you? But it's a great name, Zadok, isn't it?
Well, there you go.
There we go.
You perhaps should get a dog, call it Zadok.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Zadok, maybe.
Hey, oh
dear,
my
dear.
God.
If you had to go New Testament...
Well, I rather like the book of James. I actually wrote a book on the book of James. James was almost certainly the brother of Jesus, and he was overseeing the church in Jerusalem. And the whole book of James is like soccer punch after punch, 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 punch. It's like little axioms of wisdom. But I tell you what, he doesn't half say it as it is. Like, he's not subtle. So perhaps that's why I like him, because I've never been known for my subtlety either. Great book.
Very good.
Your favourite piece of wood?
That's a very niche question. Are you talking just about the genre? Like, do you prefer oak or walnut? Or are you talking about...
I think it's favourite actual physical piece of wood.
Physical piece of wood. Well, that then would definitely be, and you can just see it to your left, is my dining table. Because, and maybe everyone chooses that, I don't know, but...
We've never asked it before.
Okay. For me, I have 1,000 memories, she says, trying not to get emotional, of our kids around that table from being tiny, doing craft activities, birthday parties, Christmas dinners. So many memories around that piece of wood there. It represents a lot. I love it.
Wow, that's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
What I love is that we come up with these ridiculous
Something
questions.
sensible comes out of it. Yeah.
And something beautiful. How often does it happen, though? We come up with, oh, that's a stupid question. And there's just a beautiful answer to it. It's wonderful. Okay, it's the big moment. Our third category is always your top 5 films.
Well, I'm very excited about this.
Okay, good.
I am very excited about this. I feel like everyone else has probably gone so highbrow. I bet Shawshank Redemption is like so I've gone lowbrow.
Okay.
It's all right. That's great.
No, we like that.
Just thought it was best to be me. Okay, so first of all, going very much for Miss Congeniality.
Brilliant.
Fantastic film.
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock is just the most brilliant comic actress, but actually is an incredible woman. And she's like this undercover spy, undercover FBI agent in a beauty pageant. Michael Caine, her agent. I mean, it's just brilliant. Loads of challenges about stereotypes of women in there, and about how strong women can be, whether they're beautiful or not, actually. So I love it because of that. So that's great. Is that okay?
That's very good.
really good.
Do you think there's any chance that it's based loosely on the Book of Esther?
Might be stretching it.
It might be tenuous, yeah. But it's definitely a theme, isn't it?
It's worth thinking about. Yeah. Okay, good. That's one.
So next one, and I'm aware here that I am highlighting lots of brilliant women in this podcast because I actually think that's really important that we do. But genuinely, and it's not just picked because of this, one of my favourite films of recent years is Hidden Figures. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Go and watch it immediately
Brilliant.
if you haven't seen
I
it.
haven't seen it.
Just stop the
Absolutely
podcast.
brilliant.
Anyone who's listening who has not watched Hidden Figures. So you've got these incredible women working for NASA, some 50s, 60s era. So it's in the space race. They're working for NASA. Black women, actually, who really made the space race happen. They were just called the computers. That's what they were called.
Wow.
They were hired for their brains. And they made it possible for man to land on the moon. They didn't even have their own toilets. They were treated really badly. And all of the profile went to these white, powerful men. But behind the scenes, there were these hidden figures, these incredible women whose stories are only just being told. One of them, I think, was still alive, and I think Obama gave her a special medal. It's a phenomenal real-life story, and it's a brilliant film.
Right. Oh, I should
watch
add that to my list then. Yes.
Definitely.
Put it at the top of the list even.
I think you should. Slightly going from a gear change moment here. I think I'm going to go for anything with Julie Andrews in. So Mary Poppins or The Sound of Music. I love a musical. Absolutely love a musical. I wanted to be Julie Andrews really, really badly. And I just think, what is Christmas without Mary Poppins? I mean, it's just nothing, is it? So all of those incredible popping through the chalk drawings in all those songs. Oh, it's just wonderful. So uplifting. You've got the suffragette movement going on in it. It's got quite a lot of, you've got Dick Van Dyke with his very dodgy accent.
Yeah,
but
spot on, I think. Yeah.
it's just such great fun. It's really, really great.
Okay.
Okay. Toy Story trilogy. And it's, let's talk about this. This is serious highbrow stuff now. It's particularly the third, I think my daughters would say. Third of the trilogy is a bit of a masterpiece. But, Tom Hanks as Woody, the whole cast. And it actually, I think Pixar, Disney are, absolutely genius. And, when you read about the creativity and the filmmaking actually involved in the Pixar films, particularly Disney, it is groundbreaking technologically, and the storyboarding of it, the writing of it, the characterizations, the plot lines, the music, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So trilogy, because there was a Toy Story 4, wasn't there?
Was there?
Yeah.
Oh, was there 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in fact, I would withdraw my previous statement, my lord, and I will go for the Toy Story quadrilogy.
Very nice.
Yes,
very good.
So I'm saying what a big fan I am by basically not even knowing how many of them there are.
I don't think
but all I know is I really enjoy them.
Toy Story, excellent.
And finally,
Yes.
this is a film that our family have watched again and again and again and again, and it is School of Rock with Jack Black.
Yes. Brilliant.
So again, I'm not going for your scary thrillers. There's no kind of Tom Cruise in car chases here. I'm just going for good. I want to watch a film and switch off and just be uplifted. And School of Rock, again, the music is amazing. Jack Black's hilarious, and just that sense again of being able to, take kids who might be disaffected and struggling, and with the power of music and with a great teacher, you can see transformation happen. And I really resonate with that. I could watch that film time and time again and never get bored.
That's a great selection.
Really
great
good,
selection.
really
and,
good.
and it's actually it is choosing what you like, because that's what Take a Pew is all about. It's getting to know the person. It's not asking people to name 5 great films.
Now, our penultimate category is in fact 8 categories.
Good Lord.
That we call the Great 8, a unique, clinically proven insight into one's true character.
Yes, but it's quickfire.
Okay, I'm really worried about
quickfire,
this.
Just
Yeah.
count. So here we go. 8 quickfire categories.
Okay, here we go.
Starting with your favourite author.
Jane Austen.
Favourite type of food?
Curry.
Good answer.
Favourite TV programme.
Race Across the World.
Yes.
Very popular at the moment, isn't it? Very good.
Favourite sport?
Oh my gosh, like nothing. Oh, Wimbledon. I like watching Wimbledon.
Favourite band or musical artist.
Jamie Cullum.
Oh, that's a nice choice. I like that.
Favourite holiday destination?
Cornwall.
Favourite chocolate bar.
Oh gosh, dark chocolate something. Let's go Green and Black's dark chocolate with nice little bits of orange in it.
Oh, very
Lovely.
Is that the ethical choice?
Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, that was my main driver. Yeah.
Favourite board game?
Let's go for. I quite like the Settlers of Catan. Does anyone else like that?
Wow. Where did that come
Never
from?
heard of that.
Oh no! Well, it's a bit of a nerdy board game. It's for people who are like really seriously into their board games, which we do have a lot of board games. Settlers of Catan. It's often nerdy teenage boys, but you know I'm there.
I'm going to look that one up, definitely.
That's good. Well,
That's good. We
I'm
like
pleased to come across someone who actually has got some board games, because quite often people say, "Oh, I don't really do board games."
Oh, we've got loads.
Yeah.
Every year, Christmas, new board game.
Well, that's great. I'm very pleased to hear it. And our final category on my favourite things is always multiple choice.
Okay.
So I'll give you 3 possible answers.
Okay.
And Cathy, as we've mentioned, you're currently at Fishponds Baptist Church. So we'd like to know your favourite fish. 3 possible answers.
Wow.
The notable Hollywood actor Lawrence Fishburne.
Okay.
The notable chemical reaction nuclear fission.
Right.
Or fish cakes.
This is important stuff, and I think it'd be wrong to rush to an answer. I'm going to go for. So my oldest daughter has a master's in physics.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to go for nuclear fission because I feel like she would be very proud of me.
I think that's a very commendable answer. I think it probably has contributed the most. Has the most to contribute. Fission, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
I suppose it does.
Although
doesn't it?
imagine a world without fish cakes.
Yeah, that'd be quite tricky.
It's a close run thing.
It's very close,
It's
isn't
a
it?
very close. When you think about the history of the world
Yeah.
and the contribution those two things make.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks,
Move
though.
on.
That was good.
Well, once again, I think that My Favourite Things has provided us with an uncharted level of insight and analysis. But now it is time to relax, because...
It's the fabulous Take a Pew dinner party, the miraculous Take a Pew dinner party. The food is quite irrelevant and some of the guests are odd. It's the impractical, fantastical Take a Pew dinner party.
I just love the fact that you're still laughing at your own jingle. Can I just say that just makes me? I don't know how many times you've heard it, but you're still finding it very funny.
What's that bit at the end?
I don't know why.
Oh, dear.
They call it hysteria, I think. Right.
Oh. Yes, Cathy. We've already enjoyed a number of fabulous, miraculous Take a Pew dinner parties. I'm sure that you'll conjure up another wonderful feast for us. A quick reminder of the rules. Obviously, you can have all of your family and friends at the party, but there remain 4 empty chairs for you to fill.
Yes, and to do that, you have to select one person from any time in history, dead or alive, a cartoon character, and a non-domesticated animal. And then on the final chair, we find a gramophone player which will play the single piece of music of your choice throughout the dinner.
So, Cathy, let's assemble our party. Your first choice, the one person from the whole of history that you would choose to join you for dinner. And remember, it can't be anyone who appears in the Bible or any of your family.
Well, this was a difficult decision. This is like, do I go for Michelle Obama, who, like, frankly, has been a groundbreaking woman in so many ways. But in the end, although she might be a little bit grumpy and terrifying, I decided to go for Queen Victoria. Because I was just thinking about, incredible woman with a lot of, power and prestige. When the British Empire, which obviously, we have questionable ideas about the benefits and not of empire. But anyway, at the time, she oversaw large swathes of the world. But also, I was just thinking about the Victorian era, the invention of electricity, steam engines, the telephone, toilets, the underground, Brunel, as you said, in Bristol, all of the amazing engineering feats that happened during that era, the abolition of slavery. There was incredible artistic, scientific, cultural, and this amazing love story with Albert, who she was clearly devoted to each other. So I think, under her reign, there was just this seismic, amazing advances in society. And I think it'd be fascinating to talk to her about all of those things.
That would be amazing. And Christmas as well, basically, was invented under her, wasn't it?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. So can we make sure that the dinner party's at Christmas?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes.
Yes.
And she'd come, wouldn't she, with candelabras and feasts, and she'd come with chefs. She would, that would be amazing, because I wouldn't have to cook.
It's just getting better by the minute,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it'd be fantastic.
It would introduce an element of proper behaviour, wouldn't it? at the dinner
Decorum.
party? Decorum. That's the word I was looking
Decorum.
for.
We'd have to sit up straight. We'd mind our P's and Q's.
Yes.
Although you never know. You get a glass of wine down her. Who knows?
Who knows what she was like in her own time?
Who knows?
Okay, so Queen Victoria, a regal start indeed.
And why not?
So to accompany her, we have a cartoon character.
Well, and this is partly because I am a huge fan of this character, and I wouldn't say I model myself on her, but I would say, I'm a fan. And partly because I would just quite like to see this character interact with Queen Victoria, I am going for the indisputably brilliant Miss Piggy.
Brilliant.
She's cartoon in the sense that she's
No,
not
that's
a
okay.
real
Yeah, it's fine. You
character.
can have that. You can
there
have
are cartoons drawn of her,
Yeah.
but she's an animated kind of that. So I just kind of slightly blurred the
Yeah,
boundaries of
liberal interpretation of the rules, that's fine.
Well, she made an appearance, didn't she, at the party in the park?
She was with the new king, and
Yeah.
so yes. So Queen Victoria, her descendant, has met Miss Piggy.
Absolutely.
So
What a link.
What a link. If only I'd been that intelligent, but you were, and that's great.
It does beg the question what Miss Piggy eats, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
I don't know.
But actually, though, Muppets Christmas Carol, again, could have been on my shortlist of films.
Brilliant, yeah.
Absolutely outstanding piece of literature and art, and filmmaking, obviously. Lol. But obviously in there, they are having a big Christmas feast, aren't they? So she does obviously enjoy a Christmas meal. Yeah. So with Queen Victoria Christmas meal, Miss Piggy, perfect.
But they didn't pause in that over the Christmas dinner to focus on whether Miss Piggy was eating the chipolatas, did they?
No.
That could have been an awkward moment. I
would
can
have-
understand why they glossed over that.
Yeah, but I wonder if it's on the cutting room floor.
It may be.
I wonder if
Probably is.
maybe they did have her cannibalising.
Yeah, cannibalistic behaviour is not the sort of thing you want in the Muppet Christmas Carol, is it?
It would definitely add a few ethical implications.
Yes. And Charles Dickens wouldn't have foreseen the complications of portraying a pig eating a pig.
No, and I'm sure there are lots of things on Charles Dickens' mind, like, the plight of a poor disabled child. I don't know that he was necessarily thinking about pig eating pig.
No.
Thank you for bringing us back on track.
Yes.
Cathy.
Yes.
Okay, the third chair, a non-domesticated animal.
Please don't say a pig.
Well, I was considering a giraffe because I'm very short and they're very tall and elegant, and maybe that's just a bit of a subconscious desire to be taller. But I actually went for, in the end, a penguin. Maybe because they look a bit waitery, and I can imagine just some little penguins coming around serving us little bits and pieces. But they're just very cute, aren't they?
So would a penguin be well behaved? It would flap around a bit, I suppose, but it would probably be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be okay, I think.
Yeah.
But, and you could have had the penguin as a cartoon character as well, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah, I could have.
You could have swapped those round.
So many
couldn't you?
regrets.
You could have had the penguin, and you could have had a pig as the... We're descending into a penguin spiral,
Easy
aren't
for
we?
you
I
to
don't know what's going on.
Down a vortex of strange thinking.
Anyway, finally, the piece of music to play repeatedly throughout the evening.
Well, I was thinking about a piece of Jamie Cullum because I love Jamie Cullum and I love jazz, I have to say. A bit of Ella Fitzgerald wouldn't go, would be quite happy with any of that, quite frankly. But we recently went out to hear a concert of Hans Zimmer and John Williams music, film scores. And, some of John Williams' music, oh my gosh, those film scores. I mean, it would be quite a dramatic thing, wouldn't it? If we had, the Star Wars theme, or if we had E.T. music playing in the background. But yeah, I think I think actually the E.T. score is one of my favorite pieces of music. So, something like that, a nice big film score.
I think that I could imagine that quite nice, because it does, when you get the soundtrack albums or whatever you get these days, Grandpa.
Yeah, all right, Grandad.
Oh, bless your heart. It's all Spotify, isn't it, darling? It's very confusing.
They do go on for quite a while, don't they?
So it wouldn't get boring.
You might get a bit fed up with the after a while.
That's only
wouldn't
one
you?
bit of it. It's a massive sweeping score. It's absolutely yes. When you get the whole,
It wasn't a very
film.
faithful portrayal. I recognise
That was beautiful.
No, yeah.
I was moved. I was just imagining myself on a cycle flying through the air as you sang.
It's this really is a magical, fantastical dinner party, isn't
Certainly
it? We really like
We're
that.
having a great time.
Brilliant, a great job. And we hope, Cathy, that you get to enjoy such a dinner party before too long. Seems almost inevitable.
It's going to happen, isn't it?
It's not fictional at all. Very realistic.
Anyway, with that, as I promised earlier, it's time to take a little look into the future as we ask you...
12 years from now, what would you like to be doing? Or would it mainly be the same? Or would you rather be canoeing, for example?
Yes, Cathy, what would you like us to be talking about if we were having this conversation with you 12 years from now?
Wow, that's a big one. Well, I've got a big birthday this year. So it's one of those kind of like decade-changing birthdays where you're like, okay, what I want my life to look like. So it's a good time to ask me this. This is very, very therapeutic. Thank you. I feel like, you're
what
going
we're here for.
to charge
Yeah,
me the
exactly.
counselling fees at the end of this. Would it be great, wouldn't it, if I'd written a bestseller so I could actually afford to do something nice at some point? That would be great. It would be amazing if my daughters had married and had children of their own so I could be grandma and, spoil them rotten. I'd love that. I'd love us to be able to have travelling and adventures. So it's more of, isn't it? More family.
Not less, yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh, I'm just contradicting my book. Okay, I want less work and more family.
There we go.
But also, Mark and I have such a heart for leaders and church leaders especially. And I think church leadership is a real privilege and an honour. It's wonderful to be involved in so many people's lives. But it's also, I think, just one of the hardest jobs in the world. You're never doing enough. No one's ever happy with you, really. There's always more you could be doing. Often a lot of criticism, often a lot of long hours. And so I think I'd love to think that in 10 years, 12 years' time, that Mark and I will be just encouraging other church leaders, especially those who are younger, who are maybe hitting their first set of obstacles, the first church meeting where everyone throws their stuff out the pram, and first letter that they get that they're told that they're not doing a great job. Just really to encourage them, to help them along their way, to tell them they're doing a great job, to encourage them in their marriages, in their families. So I think we would love that legacy piece in the future to be supporting other church leaders, because we've needed support from others who are more experienced and more wise and longer in the tooth than us. We're still in touch with Ian and Ruth Coffey, who married us and baptized me. They still encourage us now in our leadership, and I think that is one of the most special gifts that we've ever had, is other leaders investing in us. So hope we can do the same.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you every blessing wherever life and the Lord may take you, Cathy.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the last leg of our Take a Pew journey. In a minute, we would love to receive your spiritual pearl of wisdom.
But just before that, it's time once again for the little part of the show that we like to call...
Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
Yes, is it true? And this time, Cathy, I have what seems to me a very valid suggestion. We're all probably familiar with what we call the Lord's Prayer. And often it gets announced in church as the prayer that Jesus taught us. And this is because it is recorded in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, for example, where we find Jesus delivering his amazing Sermon on the Mount. And as part of that, Jesus does indeed set out his model for prayer. But perhaps not surprising given how long the sermon is and how much he had to remember, it would appear that Jesus completely forgot to mention the last bit of the Lord's Prayer. You know, thine is the kingdom, the power and glory forever and ever, amen. Absolutely no mention of that bit whatsoever. And we can presume that Jesus realises oversight somewhat later and commissions someone to add it in the official church guidance so that we now indeed have the proper full version. And this oversight sounds pretty credible to me, but Cathy Madavan.
Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
Is it true?
Oh my gosh! I am literally doing a master's in theology at the moment, and I'm like sat here going, is it true? So I would say that Jesus had, obviously real memory issues. That was definitely, that's something that's, clearly been well documented. Perhaps he was like a menopausal woman, which is something that maybe that's it. He was just trying to empathize with women of a certain age like me and to demonstrate that actually, these things happen. Brain fog is a thing.
So, so you think it is true? Yeah,
Could
you probably
possibly be
did
true.
get it, yeah.
That could be a first.
I mean, he had so many faults, didn't he? Apparently.
Well,
Just to reiterate, listeners, perfect, sinless, flawless Lamb of God. That's definitely what we believe.
We do try
We do,
not to be
we do,
heretical on the, and indeed blasphemous on the.
In a perfect world.
I do apologise, and it's just one of my many little things where someone does say the prayer that Jesus taught us. I always want to say plus a bit at the end. Which was added, I don't know when. Maybe someone can tell us when that was added.
Be able to add something into this conversation at this point. But I think what I would say is, obviously I know the answer to that, but I think it's very important that the listeners do the research for themselves.
that's
because
good.
that's
Good.
how we learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is a bit. I have done a bit of research, and it is a bit of a mystery. But at some point, it's been added in. But there we go.
It's very good. I like it.
Yes, I think it's worth saying. It adds a nice. We would feel left in the lurch a little bit if it just finished, wouldn't it? And deliver us from evil, which is where Jesus finishes.
Well, I mean, it is in the context of the wider sermon, obviously.
This is true, and what a great sermon it is.
I mean,
Indeed.
it is the finest, isn't it? The finest piece of communication.
Read it, Matthew chapter 5 and FF, as they say. Well,
Do they?
What?
Is that
Do
what
they?
they say?
Who says that then?
people who understand English,
Oh,
Simon.
okay. Sorry.
Anyway, thank you for putting us back on track with that one, Cathy. And having dispatched that piece of nonsense, perhaps you could bless us in a slight change of gear with your spiritual pearl of wisdom.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
Wow, I don't think I've ever been accompanied by an organ and a choir before, but it seems fitting. I suppose I was thinking about what one thing, is on my heart at the moment as a pearl of wisdom. And obviously, because I've been writing about why less means more. Well, I think one of the things that really stood out to me in the writing of that, I came across a Japanese theologian, and his name is, and I've written it down because I'll get it wrong, his name is Kosuke Koyama. And he wrote this amazing book called The 3 Mile an Hour God. And in this book, he really talks about the fact that love has a speed. And it's 3 miles an hour, it's walking speed. Jesus could have come at any point of history. He could come now when he had YouTube, when he had TikTok, when he had all kinds of, the internet broadband. But he didn't. He chose to come at a point where he walked alongside people. And, love really does have a speed. Phil Collins had a point. You can't hurry love, and you can't rush getting to know somebody. You can't kind of cajole somebody into rushing through grief or coming to terms with a big diagnosis. Love has a speed, and that speed is a speed that is a lot slower than the speed that most of us are living at. And, a lot of the research that I've been doing talks about the fact that we live to our limits without any margin at a pace that is, really probably unsustainable. And I'm challenged by that because if I want to have time to speak to my neighbours or to listen to somebody well, or to build, a strong marriage in the next season of marriage, now that we're empty nesting, then love has a speed, and you have to really slow down to be in time with whatever God wants to do with you in the season that you're in. So I guess I'm just challenged to understand the speed that God moves at, and to not hurry ahead of God, but neither to sort of tarry and to slow down behind him, but to be attentive enough to God in this season to walk at love's speed, which is Jesus' speed. So I suppose that's my little pearl of wisdom at the moment, is just thinking about the speed of love and to try and be in step with Jesus.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
Thank you very much for that, Cathy. And we are tantalisingly close to the end of the show, with our view of the rest of our lives obscured only by the dark cloud that is...
Simon's Random Question.
Simon, what is your random question for Cathy?
Well, Cathy, I've always been a big fan of alphabetti spaghetti. And as I was eating a G the other day, I had this thought. If you could henceforth only eat foods which started with the one same letter of the alphabet, which letter would you choose?
Well, this is, can I just say, I've done a few podcasts over the years, but starting and ending with spaghetti, I think is an absolutely... I think they call that in literary terms an inclusio. It's like brackets around the entire thing. So here we have a literary podcast inclusio of spaghetti.
It's very well crafted.
It's very well crafted.
It is,
It's a beautiful thing, Shakespearean almost in its brilliance. So what am I going to go for? I think I will have to go for a tea.
Ooh, okay.
Tea. Okay.
Tea, because within that I can get myself a tikka masala. I can get myself a tortilla, big fan of Mexican food. Tea cakes. Who doesn't love a tea cake?
Yeah. Turnips.
Turnips.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes good. Nice little bit of
tomatoes good.
tomato, yeah.
Tunic.
Tunic. Good for your heart, turmeric,
good,
isn't it?
Toffee
crisp.
Very good.
So there's lots of chocolates, isn't there?
Yeah, that's good.
Twix.
Yeah.
I used to
Clearly,
juggle.
we've got into your specialist subject here now. Clearly, that's where we are.
It's quite a trout.
Oh, classy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Trout.
I don't think we need to plumb the depths of everything that starts with a T.
We
but
could be
I
here
think-
a while,
I think it's a good... Right, let's
good
just
one.
check, though, because that was about 10. So A would be...
Oh, come on. We can do that.
Wow, that's another series of its own, isn't it? Really, that's another podcast for another day.
So T, I think
tea's a good one.
It's worth thinking about. I think we might discuss that in the car on the way back.
home. Yeah.
So my challenge, I guess, for you on the
Yeah.
way home, if you stop at the service station,
Yes.
is see how many foods of teas that you can actually
Yes.
consume on the way home.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Tea.
Feedback,
Yes.
comments for underneath it, for people who are tuning in. All the tea food, we want them all.
Can't you give us beef so we can have a burger on the way?
Sorry about that. Trout, all the way.
Okay.
Famously served up in service stations everywhere.
Well, Simon, I'm in awe of how you managed to keep coming up with these incredibly practical questions. Or not. But in any case, that was...
Simon's Random Question.
And so, Cathy, I am pleased to confirm that our little Take a Pew journey has reached its final destination. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you for having us here, and thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. What a joy.
And dear listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you've been uplifted, inspired and entertained once more by the Take a Pew podcast. Subscribe.
Oh, don't start that again, mate.
Yeah, sorry everyone. But please do subscribe and like and all that good social media stuff if you can. Simon and I will be back with more fun, faith and flights of fancy very soon. But in the meantime, it's Toodle Pip from me.
And tatty bye from me.
Join us again next time as we Take a Pew.
You're absolutely bonkers. And that is all I have to say.